B.A.Part फर्स्ट के विद्यार्थियों का स्वागत। प्रिय विद्यार्थियों, आज हम बात करेंगे द स्टोरी द ओपन विंडो बाय H. मुनरो। आज के इस वीडियो में पहले वीडियो में हम बात करेंगे अबाउट द राइटर and about the short introduction of the story The Open Window. So first we will talk about the writer H. Munro. Hector U. Munro, H. Munro, was a Scotsman. He wrote under the pen name of Saki. And the story, The Open Window by Saki, is a 1914 short story about Frampton Nuttall, who is frightened by the fanciful lies of his new neighbor's niece Vera. While visiting his neighbors, Frampton meets Vera, who explains that her uncle and his brother-in-law drowned in a moor 3 years ago on a hunting trip. So, first we will talk about the writer H. Munro. Hector U. Munro, also known as H. Munro, used the pseudonym Saki to write several well-known stories that mocked Edwardian English society and customs. Munro was born in Akeb, Burma on December 18, 1870 to Charles Augustin Munro and Mary Frances Mary. He was the youngest of 3 children. He had one sister, Ethel, and an older brother, Charles. Shortly after his birth, his mother, Mary, returned to her home in England to give birth to her 4th child, leaving her other 3 children in Burma with her husband. While in England, a loose cow charged at Mary while she was walking on a country road. The incident ultimately resulted in her miscarriage and death. After the death of his wife, Munro's father, an officer in the Burma police, decided to send Saki and his siblings to live with their grandmother and aunts in England. Munro did not enjoy his stay with his aunts in England, who were incredibly strict and overbearing. His works contain frequent references to spinster aunt characters, often cast as anthologists. Munro left England for Burma in 1893 to serve in the military police, but returned shortly after his departure because he suffered several tropical fevers in Burma. In 1896, Munro worked for the Westminster Gazette, writing political satires. His first book, The Rise of the Russian Empire, was published in 1900, and his second, The Westminster Allies, in 1902. During the same time, his short stories began appearing in publications including the Westminster Gazette, the Morning Post, and the Bay Standard. Munro worked as a foreign correspondent for the Morning Post in Warsaw, at St. Petersburg, and Paris from 1902 to 1908. Afterwards, he returned to London to write short stories and political works. In 1914, Munro falsified his age. He was 45 at the age in order to enlist in the army and fight in the World War. He died on November 14, 1916, during the Battle of Beaumont Hill. Second, after telling a fellow soldier to put that bloody cigarettes out, Munro was shot through the head by an enemy sniper aiming for the lit cigarette. Though his works continue to be published, several scholars complained about the dearth of biographical information about Munro. Under the pen name Saki, Munro published 138 short stories, 5 plays, 2 novels, and dozens of sketches, political satires, and essays. It is said that his influence included Swift, Carroll, Kipling, Hardy, Gogol, Darwin, and Gibbon. Scholars argue that Munro chose the pen name Saki in order to write works distinct from the writings he produced as a newspaper correspondent. After this distinction became muddied after his death, and in the present day, most of Saki's writings are attributed to H. Munro, with Saki written in parentheses or brackets. So, dear student, this was the introduction of the writer H. Munro. Now we will talk about the story The Open Window. Story The Open Window, one of the Saki's most popular stories, first published in Beasts and Super Beasts, a collection of short stories published in 1914. The story is appreciated for its twist ending, wherein the reader discovers that everybody has been fooled by Vera's ability to weave fanciful tales of death and desperation. The Open Window by H. Munro is a well constructed short story with a tricky ending. It appears to be a ghost story, which it is not. It is, in fact, a satire on the popular beliefs in ghosts and spirits. The central characters are Vera, a 15 years old girl, and the caller, Mr. Frampton. Discovering that the visitor was a total stranger, Vera planned to frighten him away. She gave him to understand that they were expecting the shooting party to return home, although they had been missing for 3 years. Even their bodies were not found. They were drowned in a bog. Mr. Frampton is horrified to see the party coming. He is sure they are ghosts. He fled in panic. Mr. Frampton falls into Vera's trap. The reader is frightened to think of the effect on Mr. Frampton, who had come here for curing his nervousness. So, dear student, this was a introduction of the story The Open Window.